My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and there was no episode, so what does that normally mean?
Well, it's Thanksgiving, so we thought we'd do a holiday special.
Canadian Thanksgiving, and who better to talk to than a Brit in Canada? James!
Hi.
How are we?
We're very good. We're chilled. At my father-in-law's house, just kind of made some pumpkin pie and just enjoying the holiday.
Nice. Are you wearing your feasting pants?
Yes, elasticated waist has been installed, and
And I'm assuming that the small hazmat team has been called in to clean the kitchen.
there was some cleaning needed to be done in the kitchen.
So how much pie filling actually got into the pies as opposed to...
Oh, most of the pie filling got in, but there was a bit of a pastry incident. So
Ooh, if you need
Things are a
an
bit
autobiography, if you need an autobiography title, The Pastry Incident.
The pastry incident.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
As opposed to mine, which is Chris Buchanan, I Hardly Knew Ye.
Or you could write a crime thriller.
The Pastry Incident.
The pastry
It could
incident.
work. So let's start with the fact that you are my patronus.
I was going to say, you kind of like, you say expecto patronus, and here I am. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. So you're... Let's start with the kitchen benches, because that's where sort of most people come from. Most of the magic happened. The chocolate cake.
yeah.
I can relate so strongly to that chocolate cake bench, and there's a couple of things with this. First of all, the white, and the fact that Dan wore white too.
Yeah.
Brave
That was-
choices.
Yeah, that was a very brave choice. The thing about the chocolate cake, like I've watched British Bake Off since the very first season, I think, and I remember like watching this over and over again, and I would sit and kind of confidently mansplain to anyone who would listen that the thing you really want to do in the first couple of episodes of these things is just like do something you can execute well, because you don't have to try and shine. All you got to do is be middle of the road for like the first few episodes. And then somehow I come up with this idea that this chocolate cake has to be like an illusion cake. I don't know
where you got that idea.
It wasn't in the brief. It wasn't like, and I decided I'm going to make a chocolate record. It was actually my son's idea, the chocolate record player specific. And I thought,
Blame your son.
great, I should do that. That's totally what I should do. I should just try and do this totally complicated thing that's completely outside of my comfort zone, because I don't usually do like the decorating cake and that'd be great. So I just totally ignored my own advice, and it was a total
Middle of the road.
yeah.
I was watching that episode again back the other day with my mother, who started to watch Canadian Bake Off through the ether, and we were watching it. And they brought up the record player, she looked and went, "Oh no, don't do that, James."
I know, it's like first episode, and like I did make that fondant one time at home, and it looked really nice. It was like a wood effect, like tiki. It had like different colors in it, and it looked really nice. And I made that at home, and then making it in the tent, it looked like, you know, those bog bodies you dig out, dig out the Iron Age bod boggy. It looked like bog
Lindau man.
Skin. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Piltdown man's skin. You know, it was hideous.
If you screwed up the shape of the record player, you could just, shape it into this random.
You could have just created like a noose out of other fondant, and you could have just said, "Lindau man is there."
Yeah,
and
yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
My British heritage.
Yeah. This is a bog body.
This is my great uncle from the Pete. It would have been beautiful.
It would have been. It was. I was so surprised it didn't go home.
I love the understated way too that you turned around and you went, this doesn't look as good as it looks in my mind.
Yeah, it didn't.
Just understated.
It was freaking fantastic in my mind. Like, and as I kind of worked more towards it, like as I was kind of practicing, I kind of, it was getting more and more elaborate in my head, and I'd 3D printed these molds to make chocolate knobs, and they were all going to be tempered chocolate, and it was going to be absolutely freaking fantastic.
I'd like to think you'd 3D printed a record, so when you could actually play it in Strawberry Fields.
Well, I even had this plan. I was going to get a record and mold chocolate off the surface of the record so it would have grooves in it. I was like, what are you thinking?
What is this like? Again, I was about to say, is the sort of condition of the bench and the floor around the bench, Is that kind of a bit of the mad scientist idea of goal focused? Because I can relate.
Yeah, I would like to think that it was that.
Let's say that. Let's say that then, James. Let's say that
that's what
together
it is.
we can build a narrative we can both agree with.
But it was such it. I had to go personally apologize to the like behind the scenes the culinary staff to say like, look, I'm sorry about that. If you want, I'll come in and clean it. Like just
the chocolate everywhere.
I took the apron off and I think it was Corey just burst into laughter because I had like the perfect silhouette of my apron like picked out with powder on the. All I can
think now is the Mr. Bean episode where he like paints the room with the stick of dynamite in the tin of paint, and like it's just the silhouettes of everything,
and the guy grabbing his hat.
And wardrobe were getting pissed off with me as well because it's like, look, James, we only have one clean apron left for you. This is.
But you should have then worn like the dirtiest apron you could have found. Like it would have just been you. See, we had in the Australian one. Yeah. They bring their own aprons.
Or in the case of Fee, her mum made her apron.
Yeah, like we've had like Fee in a couple of series ago. Her mum made her apron. We might have that. Thank you, Fee.
And it's got chocolate stains on it.
So and it has chocolate stains on it too, so don't feel bad. And yeah, in the last series, Chris, he brought a couple of them, including this massive like camouflage print one. So they've got like their own aprons on. So which is really cool because then as well, you know, again with the camouflage one, who can tell if it's dirty?
Do you wear aprons at home, James, or like hazmat suits?
I do. We have quite a collection of aprons actually at home, but yeah.
Any favourites?
There's a brown one that means you can't tell when he's making chocolate.
There's one with plastic fake boobs.
No, I don't have any plastic fake boobs.
No naughty ones.
I think my dad had one of those when I was a kid. Was one of those.
Was your father Benny Hill?
No. I think it was a Christmas present from someone else. But
this is the good bit too, because we can make a lot more British references on this one because we've got someone who gets it. So speaking of the British influence, as you said before, you'd watched all the series of British. How prepared do you think that made you for what Canadian baking show Bake Off ended up being?
I think pretty prepared. Like I think there were a couple of the bakers who said that they hadn't seen the British show before applying, and then they'd kind of like watched some episodes since they were going to be on it. But so I kind of knew a bit what was coming up, or I thought I knew what was coming up. But I think there were some things that like Battenberg cake. Like most of the other bakers had never seen a Battenberg cake, and I was like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, that was the thing that sort of we looked at. That was one of the challenges. I remember we looked at each other and went, yeah, it's a Battenberg, that's easy. Yeah. And then everyone's trying to work out the checkerboard pattern, and we're like, that's like, a Bake Off staple.
Yeah. So I think quite a few had never seen that, and so we're kind of confused.
They're all watching hockey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and that was a surprise for me as well. It's like Battenberg cake. That's a really weird thing to do, but I'd never made one. But
no, but again, you know, as the British representative in the pavilion, as we call it.
Well, Julia was there too.
Yes, but she's not baking. Like, you can't go to Julia and go, can you explain what this should look like? Because their response is, what do you think it should look like? I can't tell you. Here's Dan. He wants to eat some of your food. So, but like as the British representative, there would have been a lot of people just thinking, oh, you're automatically uploaded with all this knowledge.
For some of the things, I think. But
you're born with a Mary Berry cookbook in your hand.
Like I didn't actually bake very much when I lived in Britain, though. I did a little bit, but not very much. It was more when I moved to Canada.
Moved to Canada and became a stereotype, or
became a stereotype, yeah.
Why do I feel it's like when Australians go to the UK and become overly Australian? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And suddenly decide that they really love things like Foster's. And,
yeah.
You know, beer you can't get in Australia. By the way, sorry to spoil the illusion. Everybody overseas, we don't.
Oh, really? You can't get it?
No, it's export only.
All right.
Are you down the road?
Is it like some kind of toxic waste that you're kind of like shipping overseas?
Oh, we just send the horrible stuff gets sent overseas.
Yeah.
And because it's stronger than most of the other foreign beers, everyone goes, oh, that's amazing. You know, that Foster's Australian for beer. No, it's not.
Yeah.
I live down the road from the Foster's Brewery because it was in Ultimo, right in the city in Sydney. And the wafting of the hops late at night haunted my childhood. As did, there was this guy who'd get up on top of the University of Technology Sydney Tower and play the bagpipes. So that you have the wafting of hops and bagpipes just through the air.
Are you sure you grew up in Sydney?
I'm positive.
Are you sure it wasn't Loch Lomond?
Mull of Kintyre.
Was it Paul McCartney? Was there Mull of Kintyre? I have to check these things.
This is not a fever dream. It's
not a
real.
fever dream. So, but yeah, it's like for example, brandy snaps. We'll get to them right now. Your line where you said this is the reason I left the UK is so accurate because now with the brandy snaps, I said on the podcast, I like brandy snaps, but I don't like them rolled with the filling. I just like the flat biscuit. Were you kind of hoping
them like that? I've only ever seen them rolled.
Yeah, see, this is something that happens in Australia where they don't bother with the cream and they don't bother with the rolling. They just give you the flat brandy snaps.
I've seen them as a little cup as well. Like,
yeah, well, we mentioned on that week's podcast that we'd actually been to a restaurant that had promised a brandy snap cup, and what they delivered was sadness. So they hadn't actually delivered us a brandy snap cup. But yeah.
No, they were actually. I'd never made them, and they were actually quite fun to make. But it was really stressful because they are so hot when they come out of the oven.
Do you have any fingerprints left?
If there's crimes being committed, it's James. He's got no fingers.
That was another one. It didn't really come out on the edit, but I had there's about 5 minutes left, and I think I had 6 on the plate, and people kept walking past and looking at me going, well, you're screwed, aren't you? And they were just like, my station was just a total disaster. And I somehow managed to get like 14 others that were kind of in various stages around the thing and gather them together and get them piped. I have no idea how I managed to get them on the plate.
It's always fun to watch that where you see that there's this, oh, they're not going to get that up, not going to get that up. And then suddenly when they get to judging, they've managed to like throw something on the plate, usually with the assistance of about 8 different sets of hands running over going, what can we do? Like, how can we get this on the plate for you? Yeah. Now, a couple of things that one of the things that I discovered, which sort of shook my faith in you. Vegetarian?
I am vegetarian. Yes. I realised that has upset you for some reason.
Did you have tofurkey then today?
No. I've made myself. No one else in my family is vegetarian. We normally eat vegetarian at home. But for Thanksgiving, I think everyone else is having ham, and I'm having. I made myself a lentil loaf, which I have brought over. So,
is it shaped like a ham though? You know what you
No, it's not. It is just a log of lentil pumpkin mix kind of thing.
He shaped it like the face of a pig, just to be judgy.
There's a great vegetarian restaurant chain in Australia called Lentil as Anything,
which is wonderful.
Because there's a band called Mental as Anything, and I just realised that you probably don't.
No, they went to number 1 in Canada.
I know Mental as Anything. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
They went to number 1 in Canada. It was one of the only places worldwide, and they went to number 1. I was sort of torn in Canadian Week because on one hand, I was like, vegetarian, but on the other hand, I'm like, but yay, he got Star Baker. I've never been so sort of torn. Was that sort of that
Did I do that on purpose just to bug you?
I believe so. Yeah. Was Canadian Week your favourite week?
It was actually. That I think it was probably my favourite week because everything worked. It was one of everything turned out exactly as intended, and the tortilla though that was one of the bakes that I practiced the most. Like I took a long time trying to get the flavour of that just right.
Yeah.
And my son was so sick of eating tortilla for dinner every night for like 3 weeks. I'd go like, "What do you think of this one?" It's saying it's tortilla again. We have to keep it. Yes. Tell me what you think.
In the end, did he stop you and go, "Dad, you're being a bit presumptuous that you're going to make it through to tortilla"? Right? I've seen your bench, Dad. You could be in trouble. I saw the record player.
Exactly.
Right? You may not get to make this tortilla. Right? Can you back it off for a minute? Here's an idea. Here's an idea. Work on your pavlova.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that tortilla, it did taste really good actually. I was quite pleased with it. So.
And again, maple leaf cream cookies. Now, obviously, in Australia, we don't have those.
No.
Are they a big thing in Canada?
I apparently.
Yeah. See, we had the same reaction. I've got a lot of Canadian friends. We watch a lot of Canadian TV. And I'm going, this is invented.
No, are they store-bought?
I have seen them in stores, and they're just like little shortbread cookies with some cream in between. So I didn't know it was a thing, but it's a thing. So there we go.
Yeah, I mean, and we also the question we asked during the donut challenge was there a Tim Hortons out the back that was just funneling the donuts onto the shelf? Is this how they funded the whole series? They funded the series by just Tim Hortons. Because
we are big donut fans in Canada. Was it? I think you mentioned that it was like we're the biggest donut eaters in the world or something. Like
per capita, yes.
Yeah, per capita.
Have you embraced that? Like now that you're a Canadian?
I like a good donut. I do like a good donut. That's for sure.
So do I. Like there'll be occasions like during the week because I have like a 3-hour commute, like 1.5 hours each way to work, and there'll be like some mornings I wake up and just like promise myself a donut on the way to work. I'll call into the service station.
Get out of bed in the morning, Kristie. I'll get you a donut.
It's deep fried carbs and sugar. I mean, what can go wrong?
But it works. It's like when you get a donkey and you put an apple on a stick. Mine's a donut. Like I'm Homer Simpson.
You are the living embodiment of Homer Simpson. To bring it back to a brief Australian focus.
Yes.
The pavlova.
Yes.
How many people in there had a vague clue about a pavlova?
I don't know. I've actually made loads of pavlovas over the years, so
they're good.
Like it was a common, and my wife makes a good pavlova as well. It's been a common dessert in our family for a long time. I think everyone had made them before. No, I know someone who hasn't made one before, which was Julian.
Oh, wow.
That was literally the first pavlova he'd ever made.
Is he a convert now? Is he like all the time?
I couldn't believe it. I was kind of reasonably pleased with mine. I turned around, looked a few benches back, and he's got this. Was the most beautiful pavlova
stunning
I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And fantastic flavors. Like you,
never done that before. But this is a bake-off.
He was Australian in his past life.
But it was beautiful. It was and it looked even more beautiful in real life than actually on the TV. It was fantastic.
But this is a bake-off tradition of people not having a clue what they're baking and knocking it out of the park. I mean, we've had a couple of. Dampfnoodle was possibly the most famous one from the British Bake Off.
With Val.
Where Val had no clue.
I remember that. Yeah, that was weird.
Did not know no one knew what a Dampfnoodle was, and Val's like, I've got no idea, and came first. Yes. Miraculously.
Perfect Dampfnoodle.
And it was Val and a confusing challenge. I'm still stuck to this day how that happened.
It's like when 2 negatives equal a positive, 2 confusions equal a clarity.
Sometimes with those technicals, you can't... if you really don't know, you can't really overthink it.
Let's talk about the technical, shall we? Because
go right for it. Yeah.
Because from watching the British series, right? Occasionally they'll throw you a curveball of leaving something out.
And by the end, Mary Berry's just
by the last ones, Mary Berry is just sort of going make it up as you go along, and Prue's doing the same thing now. But like in most series of Bake Off, the technicals you usually get for the first couple of weeks, the instructions.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell are they doing to you guys over there? like there was one in the bread challenge the other day, knead until mixed.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing?
I guess they're trying to kind of probe your kind of your intuition into doing these things. So and your skills. So I guess they want to check that you kind of know a broad like spectrum of different things. But yeah, it was kind of some of them were kind of surprising. The arugula was kind of bacon again. That was a bacon till done one, I think.
Yes, it was bacon till done.
I have no idea what this is supposed to look like when it comes out. So
and you came first in it. I loved it. I loved everyone looking at the arugula going, you know what this is? You know what this is? Terry's like, I've seen one. Linda's like, I got no idea. When Linda says she has no idea.
Yeah,
like when Linda goes, I don't know. Panic. That week also, you introduced us to possibly one of the most creative bakes from any series of Bake Off.
Yeah.
The Eco Home. Just explain the process.
What was the process? I don't know. I just, I mean, it was asked to build a gingerbread house. We build a gingerbread house most years. Like, at home we did a Doctor Who TARDIS one year, and we've done a whole bunch of other stuff. But
are you guys getting the new Jodie Whittaker season?
We are looking forward to that. Is that this week?
It is.
It is 24 hours because we're getting it
24
Monday,
hours time.
So probably
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then we will be definitely watching that.
Woohoo!
That TARDIS gingerbread. That sounds good.
Yes, he likes the TARDIS gingerbread.
And I guess I wanted to do something like we have always thought of building our own home, and we always talked about it, and so we just wanted to, I just wanted to make something that kind of spoke to that. But I also wanted to do something a bit sciencey. So I'll go and get some actual solar panels and put them on and sort them out.
I'm surprised it didn't have like a reed bed sewage system installed.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that I didn't end up having time for. There was supposed to be a rain barrel made out of marzipan, and there was a couple of other things that kind of went by the wayside. But I think actually that was the bake that I was most proud of, because I actually did a bunch of piping that is something that I usually shy away from. I'm not very good at it, and so
we'll come back to your fitness in a moment.
Yeah, and so for that, like I tried really hard to kind of get that right, and I was pretty pleased how it ended up looking at the end. So yeah.
Now, alongside, did you, much like Vandana with her children wanting a tree house, so she made them one out of gingerbread, was the inspiration for the Eco Home your son wanting solar panels? Was it the same thing? Like, I want solar panels, Daddy. Okay, I'll put them on a cake. Because like I ripped Vandana on Twitter about that, and I'm like, so your son wanted a treehouse, so you made it for him in cake form, and not in a way that he could even eat. It was in the shed. So like, I took a photo of this gingerbread treehouse I made for you. Isn't that what you wanted? But I did see the follow-up photos where she made it for him, and he loved it. But what was it? Just Daddy, I want solar panels. Okay, on a cake.
On a cake, yeah.
That's all we're after: solar panel cakes.
Solar panel cake. Yeah.
I was
a bit worried about them actually, because I know that I think Mary Berry was always a stickler for, if it's on there, you have to be able to eat it.
Yes. Yes, Mary Berry doesn't like things that you can't eat.
Well, she could have eaten the solar panels. I'm not saying they're digestible or like not poisonous.
Overly crunchy, but
But think about how powered she would have been if she'd gone out and sunbaked for the next hour.
And if the sun shines out of your ass, like, you've got energy for fucking days.
Energy for days. So of all of the challenges, and we're not going to talk technicals just yet. We'll come back to technical ideas. But of all of the challenges, was there just one that when you read it, you just went, I don't want to do that. I have no inclination to want to do that.
There was.
He's blocked it out.
And to be honest, you know what it was? It was cupcakes.
Yes, this is where I wanted you to go.
I never make cupcakes. To me, cupcakes are just. It's a. Perfect,
and they made you start with them.
Yeah, and it's like a boring bit of cake with.
They're a white woman
thing
play.
on top of it. Like, you know.
On behalf of white women, I'm very sorry for making cupcakes a thing.
No, they're a white woman. I made cupcakes for little Josiah's birthday.
I know.
But I love the fact that you started.
Place,
You started with the cupcake because you wanted to continue, though, by putting stout in it.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Was that your protest?
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to make a cupcake. Beer.
And actually, the glaze had whiskey in it, so it was a beer.
Yes.
They didn't mention that, but it was a whiskey glaze and a stout on the inside.
No, I remember them mentioning the whiskey. They mentioned it in passing, but there is no note of it made anywhere. They just didn't.
They were too drunk.
And it's interesting to find out. Now, we always like to talk, whenever we talk to anyone from any series of Bake Off, we ask the Australian bakers this, we've asked the British bakers this, so it's time to ask you, who was the booze hound? Who had the stash of booze?
And why was it you?
I think all of us had kind of cottoned on to that idea. And like, I think I read somewhere when I was kind of preparing for the whole thing, I think it's one of the British bakers, I can't remember which one. It might have been Rose, actually. She had like the top 5 things to do well in Bake Off. Mm-hmm. And like number 1 is put booze in things.
Yes. When in doubt, booze.
Just put booze in it. And I think everyone had read that. So we had quite a lot of booze going around. I know Julian boozed it up quite a few times. Corey,
Sinclair opened up with his cupcakes for whiskey, cream, and mojito.
Yeah, Sabrina was definitely putting booze in it. So yeah, we all kind of tried to.
It's the trick. You all had to Uber back to the accommodation.
Well, luckily we were driven around, so that was good.
It's the trick. It is the trick of Bake Off, and I'm pleased to see that people actually learnt it. Which is it's always the same. If you are struggling to come up with a concept as to what to do in your bake, put some booze in there, and it normally goes really well. And speaking of boozy things, there was a trifle. Yes,
there was.
Now, had you seen like the other series, not just British but Australian? Because I need to. We tweeted out the photo, I think, of Chris's trifle and a GIF of Chris's trifle. Have you seen any of the Australian Bake Off at all?
I did watch one episode of it, I think. And like my wife said, "Oh, you should look at I'd watched lots of British, and I said you should look at the Australian one because it's like another non-British country, like so see how it kind of translates to somewhere else to get some other ideas." So I did watch one Australian one. I couldn't tell what it was, but
we tweeted out the photo like when Chris in the Australian series made the trifle.
Oh, this is this really tall one, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't do it justice. The photo doesn't do it justice. The image, the giant spoons the hosts had to eat it, don't do it justice. I've seen the bowl.
You can fit his head in the bowl.
Yeah. Well, the last time I saw the bowl, it contained fruit. So, and it was like an entire orchard of fruit. So with the trifle, was that just an excuse for everyone to throw as much booze into a container as possible?
Booze as possible.
Yeah, like gin.
Yeah, mine was gin. I did gin, and that was just like, this is just going to be booze. And I think they specifically said that in the brief, even it's like it's got to have booze in it.
There must be alcohol. Look, the judges are having a long flight in this week. Yeah. They need to drink to forget. How did you find? I mean, before you went in, did you know who the judges were before you got in?
No, and that was kind of a tricky thing because, like, I could watch all the British Bake Offs and go kind of like, oh yeah, so Paul Hollywood doesn't like this, and Mary Berry doesn't like this, and Prue doesn't like this, but we had no idea, and we literally were introduced to them in the green room on set, like 2 days before the first filming, I think. And
rapid Googling.
We just went back and like, Google, what is this person like? What?
Show me Highgate.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you a little stunned there was an Australian in the pavilion?
Was the what, sorry?
Were you a little stunned they'd brought an Aussie into the pavilion?
Yeah, that was a surprise. That was a surprise. But,
it was a surprise to us. Yeah. We're watching Terry, we're watching the first episode, and she starts talking. We're going, that's not pure Canadian. There's Australian in there. And then we Googled, who is Rochelle? So,
Yeah.
and Highgate,
Yeah,
looking forward. We're going over there at some
we're
point.
going to
So
Perth.
that's in Western Australia.
Yes.
It is. Oh, look at you
I actually
knowing.
mentioned I have an Australian connection. My brother lives in Queensland.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hello, James's brother. Whereabouts in Queensland is he living?
He's in Cairns.
Oh, he's right up north.
He's in the good spot.
He's in the good bit. So
Definitely go for a holiday there.
So speaking of Western Australia,
Just like go swim with the crocodiles.
no, try not to. So speaking of Western Australia,
Or during cyclone season.
so speaking of Western Australia and our friend in Western Australia,
They do have very big spiders up there, like these bird-eating spiders.
That's the main thing that puts me off.
the giant spiders. That's
It seems that everything that moves in Australia will kill you just by looking at you. So
but the only thing we're afraid of are magpies.
Yeah, we're not afraid of everything else. Magpie, on the other hand, run like the wind. They're the only things that make people put ice cream containers on their heads. Like, there's no, seriously, that's not a joke.
And swoop and peck the fuck out of your head.
Like, there's the big spiders and the snakes, and everyone's like, oh yeah, just don't go near that. Oh yeah, just don't touch that. Oh yeah, just avoid that. Oh look, that's a brown snake. Yeah, just don't go near it. It's very lethal. Don't go near it. Magpies.
Run!
Ice cream containers on the head because they swoop.
Like they're the inspiration for Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, for sure.
They're brutal. They really are. They're genuinely brutal. And like, there was one day I was sitting in the front room. My friend had like a bay window at the front of his house, and we're growing up. And we're sitting in the bay window, and this magpie decided to swoop, and it's just full ball at the window, and we're just watching it as it hit and just slid down the glass. But it tried 3 more times. This is how aggressive these birds are. They're insane.
But what were we talking about?
Western Australia and our friend in Western Australia, Robert, and finesse within the shed / pavilion.
Yes.
So your finesse / I like the way that Rochelle very week by week just kept on subtly throwing in the digs of it tastes amazing, but can you make it look a bit better?
Yeah. As I said during the chocolate cake, things look a lot better in my head. So, and there are other things that I do that are where I kind of manage a bit more finesse, but for some reason in baking things get a bit out of control.
Well, it was interesting because when we talked to Terry the other week, and we said to her about other bakers and whose food did you like eating the most? She goes, oh, James's, 100%. She's like, the flavour. She goes, it doesn't look much, but the flavour's incredible. Yeah. And that was the thing. Your flavours always seem to be really strong.
Because that's my. It's got to taste good. It's and I think a lot of baking, I think the sort of mistake a lot of people make is they just put lots of sugar in things and just make things sweet. Mm-mm. And if I take a recipe off the internet, the first thing I do is half the amount of sugar they put in and like triple the amount of spice or whatever they say. I've got some of our favorite recipe books we use at home are these. There's this cafe in New York called Moosewood, and they have a whole set of recipe books, and we have like half a dozen of them. And their recipes are great, but they're ridiculous with spices. They say things like, quarter teaspoon of cinnamon. It's like,
why?
Like,
lovely.
So like, I basically, whatever they say, I like quadruple it at least, because it's got to taste good. And that's, and I think, the other, so the other, like, just, you put the flavorful things in there and don't just make it sweet. That's,
but it also feels a little bit like the Cupcake Wars / Cake Bossification of a lot of baking, where it looks incredible. But if you ever see something like a Cake Boss, and they make these cakes that look amazing and huge, and it's a bland vanilla cake and Rice Krispie squares. Yeah. And I'm like, there's no flavor inside that cake. It looks incredible, and then you cut it open, and it's cream and Rice Krispies and bland vanilla. Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of people who focus more on the make it look incredible rather than the make it taste incredible. Yeah. When the look is one thing, but the flavor, you remember that flavor long after you forget what the thing looked like. Yeah.
Like my mum keeps raving on about our wedding cake because Monica from Australian Bake Off.
Yeah, it was a runner-up. Yeah.
All right.
Made this beautiful orange poppy seed with a Contro cream cake, and it looked amazing as well. She made it to look like the Great Australian Bake Off shed. But my mum didn't give a shit what it looked like. She just keeps going, "Oh, Kristie, you tell that Monica it's the best cake I've ever tasted. If she's got any left, just bring it on over, okay?"
But like with that one there, we said that we wanted it to look amazing.
Yeah.
But we wanted that flavour, which is why we went to someone like a Monica who we knew had flavour.
I would like to go level up a little bit on the looks, though.
Well, you need to bring it up a teensy.
Yeah.
A teensy.
Like the worst one for me was the my elegant pie.
It was luxurious.
It looked like a poop in a pie dish.
Really,
I'll let Kristie take that one because that was her first comment.
It looked like a cow pat.
It did.
Totally. I'm thinking like your artistic style is like Monet. You know, you've just got to be back from a distance.
But again, it's another one that
Monet
it looked in my head really nice. And I should put up. I did practice it, and it had like these little spirals of caramel on it. It looked kind of nice.
You'd make them into like, what are they called?
The bag exploded in my hand. I was at the point of piping this, and it was salted caramel, but I think I used like big chunky salt, and it kind of clogged up the end and exploded in my hand. And now I had like just a handful of hot caramel. I was like, how am I getting this out? I just started scraping it off over the top. Just like,
and again,
that'll
clean
do.
up afterwards are just so thankful.
I want to know, whoever the poor person was who got assigned to your bench for cleaning,
Yeah.
did they go in and just like demand double time?
No, they bring people doing community service.
Yeah. That's the community service bench over there. So was there one bake that you did that you'd never done before that you like have since added to the repertoire?
The other one that the arugula I have done a couple of times. I enjoyed doing the arugula. I think that's
reflecting
nice.
on his victory.
I have to say, I still can't quite get it like fully baked. Like, because I won that technical, but I was best of like a bad bunch because all of us were underbaked. Like
never mention that to anyone, James. Like you won.
But I've tried it a couple more times, and it is really hard to get them fully baked. So, but I like them, so I'm going to try them again. So.
One of these days.
One of these days, I'll get it to work. Yeah.
Is there any like superheated conductor like in your workplace that you can like, I don't know, like some fancy gadget that you can go try it in?
Suddenly appears at CERN.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I know you're trying to work on the Hadron Collider. I know what you're working on here.
I need to bake this arugula.
I've got a arugula.
It's got to be done.
And look, you can have a piece. You can have some. All of you can have some. So we asked this of Terry, and she name dropped you. Whose flavors did you most like getting to go and eat?
Vandana had fantastically interesting flavors.
She was also a vegetarian, which helps.
Yeah. But all kinds of things I'd never tried before, like what that winter melon. Is it called winter melon? Yeah. Which was really good. And then this, I'm going to say it wrong, but I think it's Tandai syrup that she used. In
yes.
Mousse
what
cakes,
which I'd never heard of. It sounded amazing.
I had never heard of it. And it's like an aniseedy flavor.
Oh.
That was really nice. So yeah, and Julian as well, really good flavor. I mean, they all tasted pretty good. I have to say, we didn't actually get to eat very many of them. So
was it just Dan in the corner with a fork?
Well, the thing is, like, after they finished filming, we were all sent off to the green room, and the crew descend like vultures.
See, this is where the Australians have it right. The Australian bakers just sort of hip check the crew out of the way and eat first.
Yeah. So we didn't get to eat an awful lot of it. The other great one was Corey's showstopper bake, the huge challah.
Oh yeah.
That chocolate how was fantastic. That was really good. We were all like nibbling that like mad. We kept getting told off for like nibbling it while they were trying to film it. And that I have no idea how. Like I saw him take that out of the oven, and he looked like. I thought, wow, like Corey's shrunk, like because that bread cannot possibly be that big.
What happened? What happened?
It was gigantic. I was thinking like that's never going to be baked all the way through. There's no way he's baked that all the way through, but it was perfect all the way through. Fantastic.
Okay, so I have to mention the elephant in the room. So let's get to it.
Okay.
Saskatoon berries.
Yes.
Are they real?
They are absolutely real, but they're not what I thought they were.
Yes, we discovered this the other day because James on Twitter was defending them passionately. And then I get this, oh, actually, no, that's not what I thought they were.
Because we used to have this tree when we lived out in New Brunswick on the East Coast. We had this tree in our backyard, which someone told me was the Saskatoon berry, but it had the berries looked more like red currants.
Yeah,
they were like red currant, and
so even they didn't know what they were.
And someone told me it was a Saskatoon berry, and I just kind of, oh yeah, okay, that's Saskatoon berry, and yeah, I've since found that isn't what a Saskatoon berry is at all.
Yeah, there's a Saskatoon and a June berry. I've been doing my research.
For his upcoming documentary.
There is an upcoming documentary. It is on its way. That's not a joke, people. I'm doing a documentary on uncovering if the Saskatoon berry is a real thing.
Yeah.
I don't believe it exists.
You got to be careful though, because the Saskatoon berry mafia may come after you.
Oh, I'm ready. I've taken on the thugs in the scholar industry. I'm ready. I'm ready for them. They can bring it on. If they can bring it on and pelt me with Saskatoon berries, I will die knowing they're real. I don't fear
into Sydney Harbour with a pocket full of Saskatoon berries.
Look, Japanese subs in World War II.
Look, if they can make it from Saskatoon to Sydney to kill me, good luck to them. Right? If they feel the need to travel that far, I say they deserve it. In all honesty,
We're going to call this an international incident. We're going to be having the
with Canada.
Yes.
This is not the movie Canadian Bacon. We're not going to create. We're not going to create an experience where the Canadians try to kill us. That's not going to happen. But no, I don't. I still don't believe they're real. I'm worried that they've tried to actually sort of convince you and mind trick you into believing they exist.
We're going to have the Governor General knocking on our door going, look.
Maybe he's saying it for immigration purposes.
Just blink once.
Putting it out there, blink once. We can't see it, but blink. So overall, the experience, I'm assuming it's something that you see as an amazing, positive experience for you. And yeah. Except for the fact that you went out on French Patisserie Week, and as a Brit, that must have cut to the bone.
I was so surprised to have got that far.
You're like, you remember I made the record player, right?
I just I feel like they kind of didn't quite notice me several times. I should just keep my head down.
That's the trick.
Once there's only 4 left, hey, hang on, what are you still doing here?
We refer to that here as Trenting, because in the Australian series of MasterChef, there's usually somebody called Trent.
It doesn't get seen for the first 16 weeks.
They don't make camera at all. And then you get to the last 5 and they suddenly remember that Trent is in the corner and has been the whole time. There's one series where Trent in that series came 5th. And I think he was on camera 4 times. And MasterChef Australia goes for 3.5 months. He was on camera 4 times in that 3.5 months. And the next thing you saw him, he was 5th. And it's is Trent getting any airtime?
No, he's a ninja.
So we refer to now anyone in these series who manages to keep them. What you want to do in these series is you want to Trent. Because as we said to Terry the other day, do you think you set your expectations really high by being Star Baker week 1? Don't be too noticeable. So you
make a record player.
Just make a record player and have everyone think, oh, well, we'll keep him in because he's charming.
And you brought the beer.
But no, your flavors were really good, and I think that's what carried you through. But French patisserie,
yeah, that's all about finessing.
That's a bitch of a semi-final.
Yeah.
And especially a croquembouche. And let's talk about your croquembouche. I know you don't want to.
You have
to. As a scientist, had you measured out the quantities of things you need?
You know what I had? I actually worked out a formula. I spent about half an hour working out because I could never get my profiteroles to be the same size. Like they were the same in the same bake, but I could never repeat. So I'd worked out for myself a formula for how many like needed to be on each layer depending on the size of the profiterole. And so I diligently calculated this, and I drew a little circle on my baking paper to start it going up. But the problem was I hadn't actually managed to build one ever. I'd managed to get about 3 layers up, I think, was the most I got.
And you just went, that'll do?
No, it was like I was really worried because I'd never got one past 3 layers, and they just kept pulling. But I thought I kind of had it, and I started building, and I was really pleased with that. I was kind of like, actually, this is really coming together now. I've got like 4 or 5 layers. It's coming up, and then like someone came over and said, James, there's only 40 minutes left. I'm like, shit.
Only 40 minutes left, and where's all my caramel?
And the problem was I kept going up, but I wasn't ever going in.
So it became the bent pyramid.
It was like a cylinder, like just a cylinder. And then suddenly I realized I didn't really have enough profiteroles. I was never going to have enough profiteroles to like come back in at the top. And I was run out of caramel. And so like I could have made more caramel, but I didn't think I could make it in the time.
You know who I bet was really disappointed they didn't make it to the Croquembouche challenge? Julian.
Yes.
The builder. Well, the builder.
The builder, he should have. But you know who else was Pierre, actually? Because Pierre's background is French patisserie. You know, if French patisserie had been the first episode,
he would have killed it.
I would have been out and he'd have killed it. He'd have been star baker. So
he's a real Renaissance man.
That's the nature of the show, though, is that it. Like I often think, like if the episodes were in a different order, you'd get a totally different end.
Well, we've often said that we've pushed this to the Australian producers that there should be a fake first week.
Yeah,
and like there should be
just stooge.
Yeah, a member of production, and like make it just a piping challenge, and have that member of production like have the bag explode in their hands or whatever. So you can be perfect. You can now be a stooge.
Exactly. Well, I met Pierre. Like we met Pierre, and like we got to know each other really well. All of us got to know each other really well in the first few days, and like after a few hours of talking to Pierre, I thought like, well, the battle for second place is on now because he's obviously going to win because he knows absolutely fucking everything about so you know, he's a fantastic baker, but you just the nature of the game is that you have a bad day and out you go.
So what we really enjoy, that was the thing though, like when we did the dive into everyone's backgrounds and stuff like that, we're like, Pierre is a real Renaissance man. What I was really disappointed about, by the way, was that he went out in week 1 and didn't get to fulfill his promise of producing the guitar.
Yes. Which
he promised for week 2.
Yeah.
It's a bit like you, forward focusing on getting the on getting the other right. It's like, no, Dad, focus on the pavlova. So this has been outstanding.
Yeah.
And this has been so much fun to get to have a chat to you finally. One of our favorites very early on, like the first they showed your bench, you cracked open a beer, it was a mess, and I just went to Kristie, I like him. He's perfect. So thank you very much for coming on. It is an absolute pleasure to get to talk to you finally.
Thank you. Pleasure to talk to you.
Is there anything you'd like to plug or what? We've got to ask, what are you up to now? Because they didn't do it.
They didn't do the wrap at the end.
Ding, ding, ding.
Well, you know, I'm just back into teaching.
Worthwhile.
My daughter has just turned up and she would like to say hello. Hang on.
Oh, yay.
Come on, say hello.
Hello. Talking to the other side of the world.
Yeah. You having fun?
Okay.
I like it when we have run-ins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Run-ins are fun. So, and again, it's sort of what like Bake Off is. It's a big family.
Yeah.
So that works. That works beautifully. Thank you very much, James, for coming on.
You're most welcome.
Absolutely. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
We will catch you all later.
Bye.